Hi, Rick. How you doing, man?
Good morning, Keith. I'm fine. How are you?
Good, man. I'm so excited. I'm going to see you later today, man. I'll be flying in from Central Park in New York and heading up to Sedona. So
So glad I don't have to pick you up from Sky Harbor. Thank you for that.
you're welcome, man. You're welcome. Hey, I just thought we'd get right to it, man.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm reading the book Untethered Soul, which you've read before, and it's got so many gems in there to keep me present in the present moment and not making enemies of other people and just really cultivating kindness and peace. And it starts to inner peace within. I guess inner peace is within, but it starts there. And so there is one part of the book that says when you defend yourself, you're really just defending your walls, your limiting thoughts and beliefs, your psyche, all of which are meant to protect you from what you fear. And I look back on my life, man, and when I take that perspective of it, that's exactly what I've been doing, man, my whole life. I've been so identified with my narrative of what I think about people, about situations and things like that, that what I really, if I'm able to zoom out from my thoughts, how something happens and you have that impulse or that quick reaction, you don't take a moment to really consider what's happening. If I could zoom out from that impulse and zoom out from my thoughts and just really try as best as I can to be objective and really just get right down to the core of it, the root of it, what I'm really defending are my thoughts and my limiting beliefs. So that's caused me a ton of suffering, man. And when I can just say, I'm just going to be peaceful. I'm just going to be peaceful. And that's really helped me to have this new experience of life that I never had before. When I tell people, like, they assume that, Keith never has a bad day. And in 6.5 years, I've not had a bad day. I have not had a bad day. I've had challenges.
That's fantastic.
I've definitely had challenges along the way, but how I meet those challenges are completely different. I don't meet them with a defensiveness. Something will come up, a thought that you need to react, you need to respond, you need to defend. And a couple of times I've slipped, but I've been aware of the slip pretty quickly. And then I'm able to notice it, not beat myself up over the slip, come back where I am clear or made aware that there is another choice there. And in that choice, I give up defending, being defensive, or being bothered. Man, it's such a great place to be, man. It's awesome. So when you hear that, what does that make you think of? Again, the quote is, when you defend yourself, you're really just defending your walls.
Well, I guess the first thing is that the stuff that causes us to defend really has a lot more to do with the way we appear and other people not giving us the credit or, quote, the respect that we think we need. So I think a lot of defending has to do with, hey, I'm worth more than what you're giving me credit for. And if we could just recognize that what we're doing is we're sort of trying to get other people to give us the respect, which we think that maybe they're not giving us. So I think respect is part of it. And then there's also, I think the second thing for me was always fear. I was afraid if I didn't have the mask on, if I was truly vulnerable, they would think I was weak or I was, not really trying hard enough or whatever it is. So again, it gets back to the perception of what I think other people need to have of me, and that's part of it. I don't understand how that happens in life. I just know that it exists, and for me, it took me a long time to realize this. And partly it's because I live alone and I do a lot of gardening and I'm in nature a lot, and I don't see a lot of people like you guys do when you're, in your careers and you're courting and you're doing the things that young people do. But what's helped me a great deal is to realize that there's really nothing to defend. There's really, okay, so someone disses you. Well, what is my feeling about myself? Really, that's really what you have to look at, I think. And that is, if you're if you're being true to your own heart, if you're following your own beliefs and your core values, there's nothing to defend. You can let all of the rest of it fall away. I think that one of the big problems always is fear. We're afraid constantly of letting ourselves down, or being rejected by the group, or having trouble with other people. It's fear. And once you start indulging fear, like you were saying before, you catch yourself. Once you start indulging fear, you lose the ability to catch yourself and to correct. And for me, fear is always a big problem. No matter how far along in my practice I get, fear shows up every day. And that's basically what you're doing with fear. What I do with fear is I kind of ruin the future. I'm thinking so much about how bad things could be, or how bad they are, and what tomorrow's going to bring. It kind of ruins the future. So I guess the bottom line for me is I don't think that you get anywhere if you're in a situation where you're constantly trying to get something outside of yourself. Because mostly what you're going to find in your life, I think, is that you get what you give yourself. And that's the self-respect, and that's the inner peace, and that's the tranquility, and the acceptance, and the detachment, and all of the rest that I think leads us to a happier place, and a more productive place, and I think a place where it just feels more comfortable to be.
Oh, I totally agree, Rick. And, when I think of all the times that I've been bothered, and, it's really been, it's just caused me suffering. When I say bothered, I mean, feeling like I've got to defend myself from something. It immediately, the word defend to me represents putting up walls. And so you think the walls are protecting you from other people, but really what it's been doing for me is limiting me from being available to people, and what they can share and what they can learn. And when I look at my life, like, let's just take my military career when I was in for 4 years. I went in with this, defending that it should have been this way. And these people, don't have the same history or background or life experience that I did, or they don't believe the same thing that I did, because I grew up in a really traditional household and part of the country in the South. And my upbringing was full of walls regarding, race and gender identity and all this other stuff. And I just felt like I was, always in some way, even if I didn't say it verbally or out loud, inside, I was putting walls against myself and other people. And I see people doing it right now with how they're treating high school sports for people who can play with these group or compete with these group of athletes, and who can't. And all these walls we're putting up that are separating people, when there's so much richness and so much to be gained by collaboration and partnership of diverse thoughts and talents. And we just really limit ourselves. And I think there's a lot of short-term thinking about, if we preserve this way of doing things, that we will somehow benefit. But you're looking at this short time frame over the breadth of, let's say, a longitudinal study, then you'll see that having this diversity in which people are included, or in thoughts, beliefs, talents, is for the greater good. And what I would check with people that argue this, to me, what is true for me, what I would check is what are you measuring? If you're not coming up with the same conclusion, what are you measuring? Yeah. And how does that benefit the greater good? When I was defending my thoughts, what I was measuring was so trivial. It didn't benefit others. It just really benefited me, or people that thought like me. And so once I gave all that up, man, Rick, the things that felt like they were impossible challenges that will never be resolved, you start to see the possibilities of how they can be resolved. You start to see how peace is possible, how partnership and collaboration is possible. So, man, I just really gave up, defending,
when you were talking, I was just thinking of something that's kind of important. And that is that one of the ways that we can give up that attachment to defending is just maybe by ignoring it. Let's say that something comes up and it's offensive to us. Maybe if you just get in the practice of thinking, okay, I took a hit on that. Okay, that's how my ego is thinking that I took a hit. When you eventually get to the point where you don't even notice it. But okay, let's say that you're recognizing that there's a hit. One of the things that helped me early on was instead of trying to react or defend or make them wrong, is I took a moment, like a little breath, and then I thought to myself, what is it that I have in common with this person? Okay, well, in those days, it was the need to be right. So at least I had that in common. And then I would start to think about other things. And then as I got used to doing that, what I added was another layer. And the other layer was, okay, every person in the world is superior to me in some way. You take any person, I don't care who they are, where they are in their lives, there's something that they can do that's many, many times better than what I can do. How about if I just do a little exploring here and see what that is? Now, you talked about the common good, and I think you're absolutely right that, being defensive doesn't have any bearing on helping other people. In fact, it deteriorates your relationship with others, and as you say, creates walls. But if you just look at it from an ego point of view, from something like personal gain, the idea that you can go off on a little bit of an exploration with somebody, even someone you may not like, or who's disrespectful to you, if you can find something that they're superior to you about and try to learn how they did it, and even ask them. My point is that, we can never know, each of us, the whole panoply, the whole range of human experience. But if you put enough of us in a room, we'll sure as hell get closer than we will if we're by ourselves. I mean, that's the whole point behind a jury trial, right? You've got 8 or 10 or 12 people, all with all different life experiences, looking at the same problem and coming up with a conclusion. That's a marvelous thing. If you can do that with 1 or 2 or 3 other people, instead of talking about the drapes and, how terrible X, Y, and Z is, and my foot hurts and all the rest of the crap that we talk about. If you can really kind of get into something that's important, like, how do you see this? What is God for you? How do you deal with rejection and loss? Why do you continue to be ambitious? I mean, ask, and learn. I think that's really a great thing. I think we waste an enormous amount of time on small talk, and I just as soon avoid it. I know it's socially required. I mean, it's required because we feel so uncomfortable, without having our mask on. But it would be great if we could just say, here are the ways that I'm defective. How are you defective, and how do you cope with it? Let me learn from you.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. Just let's dive right into the imperfections here. I know what you do well with. I know what you're doing well, at least from what I see. Now tell me about the imperfections, and maybe we can strengthen those in both of us. If that's something that we're even interested in, or not. Let's just, like you say, get together and connect without our mask on. And what's really cool, man, is we have a group of friends that we do that. I mean, we've been so open and vulnerable with each other. I don't think there's been any point, Rick, to where you and I have been together. There hasn't been, and we felt like we had to defend, or show how talented we are in a certain area. It's, man, how amazing is that, Rick?
Well, maybe the squat rack, that might have been.
Well, other than that, yeah. But I mean, that's just such a great space to be in,
Yeah,
man.
no, you're right.
When you can be yourself, man.
Totally.
Without fear of judgment, or fear that you've got to put your mask on, or that you have to, defend yourself. I just think about, in the course of my life, where fear was present, the walls that I put up immediately. Fear that I was going to be hurt, my heart in the relationship, fear that I was, like you said, going to be disrespected or undervalued in the workplace, or that my contributions were going to be minimized. All of that, I mean, it's so trivial, man. It's so trivial, and it just builds these walls and puts them up, and you lose the opportunity to have a really rich experience in that moment with those walls up. But if you're asleep, like I was for many years, you're unaware that that's even available to you.
That's right. That's right.
So you're so identified and so practiced with the walls. And the first time that you take them down, or attempt to, and you were focused on outcome and it doesn't go the way that you thought it would go, then up they go again. And it's about the journey. It's not about what the outcome is. It's really like, I'm putting my walls down. I'm committed to this, and this is the way I'm living my life. It's non-negotiable for me. It's not dependent on what the outcome would be. I think about when I've defended myself in the past, and every time that I felt like I had to do it, every single time. And early on, there was not this little voice that said, no, you don't have to defend yourself here. I just went all in. I didn't even hear the voice. It was there, but I didn't hear it. Yeah. As I started to do the practice, now I hear the voice. Most of the time, I respond to the voice and I don't react. But there have been a few times where I was like, no, this is different. I'm going to go ahead and react here. I'm going to go ahead and defend. It's never turned out well. Yeah. 100% of the time, it's always made matters worse. And I felt worse. And I've always felt like I've unsettled, because to me, it wasn't resolved. So there was no different outcome with me being reactionary. And what I've learned is when you think you need to say or defend something, you don't. Not if you're coming at it from the space of you're wrong and I'm right. Now, if you are taking intelligent action to resolve an issue, that's not being defended. That's not defending at all. What you're doing, and what I'm talking about, is you are taking action that brings people together, that's more inclusive, that's more collaborative for the greater good. Not just the good for a certain group of people, but the greater good for everyone, even if they can't see it. And thankfully, when I was acting out like that and being a troublemaker, there were people around who said, this guy's unconscious. We're still going to move forward with what's in it for the greater good. And I see examples of that all around the place, man, all around the place. So that's all I got, Rick, man. You have anything else you want to share to close this out?
I think you covered it, buddy. I really think that there's a zero payoff in walls and a zero payoff in not telling the truth about your life and things that are important to you. Remember that the reality is we are all nothing and it's all going away. So let's have a party.
I think about that all the time, man. Every time I want to defend, every time I feel offended, I just hear you say, none of it matters and it's all going away. Yeah. So that puts me right back on the path, man. Thank you for that, Jim. It's a gym. I say at least once a week. I love you, man.
I love you, bud. Adios.
Adios.